The blood on her hands told Vincent Nash everything he needed to know about why she was trembling in the corner of his barn that humid August evening in 1878. He had returned to his ranch just outside the settlement of Pueblo, Colorado, bone-tired from driving cattle through the dusty plains, looking forward to nothing more than unsaddling his horse and collapsing into bed. But the moment he stepped into the barn, lantern held high, he saw her. A young woman, maybe 20 years old, pressed against the far wall behind bales of hay, her dark eyes wide with terror. She wore buckskin clothing, and her long black hair was tangled with bits of grass and dirt. The blood on her hands was not her own, he realized, as his eyes adjusted. There were no visible wounds on her body, just scratches from running through brush. "Easy now," Vincent said softly, setting the lantern down slowly. He kept his hands visible, away from the revolver at his hip. "I'm not going to hurt you." She did not move, barely seemed to breathe. Her eyes darted toward the barn door, calculating escape routes. Vincent was 24, had been working this land for 3 years since his father died. And in that time, he had learned that the tensions between settlers and the native tribes were a powder keg always ready to explode. He had seen good people on both sides suffer, and he had long ago decided he wanted no part of the violence. He kept to himself, worked his land, and tried to be fair in his dealings with everyone. "Are you hurt?" he asked, switching to what little Ute he knew. The words came out clumsy, but her eyes flickered with recognition. She shook her head slightly, then seemed to catch herself, as if even that small response was too much trust to give. Vincent ran a hand through his sandy brown hair, considering his options. It was late, near midnight by his reckoning. If she was running from something, whoever or whatever it was might still be looking for her. If she was running towards something, she clearly had not reached it yet. "My name is Vincent," he said, keeping his voice level and calm. "This is my land. You're safe here for now," he gestured to the hay. "You can stay the night if you need to. I'll be in the house." He pointed toward the small cabin visible through the barn door. "If you need anything, come knock." He did not expect her to respond, and she did not. But as he picked up his lantern and turned to leave, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Paloma," he turned back. "Your name?" She nodded once, a tiny movement. "Paloma," he repeated, offering her a small smile. "Pretty name. There's a water pump outside the barn door if you need to wash. I'll leave some food on the porch." He did exactly that, setting out bread, dried meat, and a canteen of fresh water before retiring to his cabin. Sleep did not come easily. He kept thinking about those frightened eyes, the blood on her hands, the way she had looked at him like he might kill her at any moment. What had she been running from? Who had been hurt? When dawn broke over the Colorado plains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Vincent rose and dressed quietly. He half expected to find the barn empty. Paloma vanished like a ghost in the night. But when he approached with fresh supplies, he heard soft movements inside. She was still there, curled up in the hay, the food from last night gone. She sat up quickly when he entered, alert and wary. "Morning," Vincent said. He set down a tin cup of coffee and some eggs he had fried up. "Figured you might be hungry." This time she looked at him differently. Still cautious, but the raw terror had diminished slightly. She looked exhausted, like she had not truly slept. "Thank you," she said in English, accented but clear. Vincent nodded and turned to tend to his horse, giving her space. He went about his morning chores, very aware of her presence but trying not to make her feel cornered. After a while, she stood and moved to the barn entrance, looking out at the land stretching before them. "This is your home?" she asked. "Yes, not much, but it's mine. My father built the cabin before he died." "You live alone?" "Yes." She was quiet for a long moment. "That must be lonely." Vincent paused in his work, considering, "Sometimes, but it's peaceful. No one to answer to but myself." "Peace is precious," she said softly, and there was such weight in those words that Vincent turned to look at her fully. In the morning light, he could see her more clearly. She was beautiful, with high cheekbones and full lips, but more than that, there was an intelligence in her eyes, a strength that even fear could not completely hide. The blood had been washed from her hands, he noticed. "Paloma," he said carefully, "I don't need to know your business. But if someone's looking for you, if you're in danger, I should know what I'm dealing with." She met his gaze directly then, and he saw her weighing her options, deciding how much to trust this stranger who had shown her unexpected kindness. "I ran away from the fort," she finally said. "Fort Garland. I was not a prisoner exactly, but not free either. My people, we were being held there, moved from our lands. There was a soldier." Her face hardened. "He thought he could do what he wanted with me. I fought him. He hit his head when he fell." Vincent felt anger rise in his chest, hot and sharp. "He forced himself on you," he tried. "I did not let him." Pride flickered in her expression. "But I think maybe he is badly hurt. They will say I attacked him. They will come looking. Did he deserve it?" "Yes." "Then you did what you had to do," Vincent said firmly. "A man like that deserves worse." She looked surprised at his response, as if she had expected judgment or fear. "You would protect me, even though it means trouble." Vincent had not thought it through that far, but hearing her say it, he realized he had already made the choice the moment he told her she could stay. "You needed help. I'm not going to turn you over to men who would hurt you. You do not know me. I know enough." They stood there in the barn, the morning sun streaming through the slats in the walls, dust motes dancing in the light. Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding, the first thread of a connection that neither had anticipated. "I cannot stay here," Paloma said, though her voice lacked conviction. "They will look for me. When they come, they will punish you for hiding me." "Let me worry about that," Vincent replied. "First thing is getting you properly hidden if anyone does come around. And getting you some different clothes. That buckskin is too recognizable." Over the next few days, an unusual routine developed. Paloma stayed mostly in the barn during daylight hours, but Vincent began to trust her enough to let her move around the property. She was restless, clearly unused to being confined, but she was also practical. When Vincent was working, she helped where she could, hauling water, tending to the vegetable garden behind the cabin, even helping to mend a fence that had been damaged in a recent storm. They talked during these shared tasks, carefully at first, then with growing ease. Vincent learned that Paloma was Ute, that her family had been part of a band that had resisted relocation to the reservation. Her father had died 2 years ago, her mother the year before that. She had a brother, Takoda, who was 5 years older, a warrior who had refused to surrender. The last time she saw him was 6 months ago, before she was taken to the fort with a group of other displaced natives who had been rounded up by soldiers. "He told me he would come for me," she said one evening as they sat on the porch of the cabin, the sky turning purple with twilight. "He promised he would not leave me with the white men, but too much time has passed. I think maybe he believes I am lost to him." "Or he's still looking," Vincent offered. "You said he's a warrior. Men like that don't give up easily." "Men like that die easily," Paloma countered, but there was hope in her voice, however faint. Vincent had given her one of his shirts and a pair of trousers that he cinched with a belt. They were far too big for her, but they served the purpose of making her look less distinctive. She had braided her hair and tucked it under a hat. From a distance, she might pass for a young ranch hand. "Tell me about your family," she said, shifting the conversation away from her pain. Vincent leaned back against the porch railing. "Not much to tell. My father, William Nash, came out here from Pennsylvania looking for a fresh start. My mother died when I was young. Father worked himself hard building this place. He wanted to create something that would last, a legacy. But then a horse kicked him wrong and he was gone within a day. Vincent's voice grew quiet. That was 3 years ago. I've been trying to keep this place running ever since. You have done well, Paloma observed. The land is healthy, the animals are cared for, he would be proud. The simple validation touched something in Vincent. He had worked so hard, so alone with no one to tell him if he was doing right or wrong. Thank you, he said, and meant it. As the days turned into a week, Vincent found himself looking forward to Paloma's company in ways he had not anticipated. She was sharp and funny, with a dry wit that caught him off guard. When he struggled to fix a broken wheel on his wagon, she watched for a while before quietly suggesting a different approach that worked perfectly. When he complained about the poor quality of his own cooking, she took over the kitchen and produced a stew using wild plants she had gathered that was better than anything he had eaten in months. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" he asked, genuinely amazed. "My mother," she said, stirring the pot. "She said a woman should know how to make food that keeps her family strong, and she said a person who cannot feed themselves is dependent on others, which is dangerous." She sounds like she was wise. She was. Paloma's expression softened. She could heal too. She knew all the plants, which ones helped with fever, which ones stopped bleeding. People came from far away to see her sometimes. "Do you have that knowledge?" "Some. Not all. She died before she could teach me everything." Regret colored her words. Vincent wanted to reach out and comfort her, but sensed she would not welcome it yet. They were still finding their way with each other, still learning what boundaries existed between them. It was on the 10th day that everything changed. Vincent had gone into Pueblo to buy supplies, something he did every few weeks. Paloma had stayed behind, hidden in the cabin with strict instructions not to go outside. The town was small but growing, a rough collection of buildings serving the ranchers and miners in the area. Vincent preferred to get his business done quickly and return to the solitude of his ranch. But today, the town was buzzing with news. "Heard about the search?" the man at the general store asked as he tallied up Vincent's purchases. Vincent kept his expression neutral. "What search?" "Soldiers from Fort Garland been through here twice now, looking for some Indian girl who attacked an officer. Beat him near to death, they say. He's still laid up, might not make it." The shopkeeper shook his head. "They're offering a reward for information. $50. $50 was serious money, enough to tempt even honest men. "They think she came this way?" Vincent asked casually. "They're checking everywhere. Word is she's dangerous, might be with hostiles." The shopkeeper leaned in conspiratorially. "Between you and me, I heard different from a friend who works at the fort. Says the officer was known for being rough with the native women. Probably got what he deserved. But the army can't have that kind of thing, so they're making an example." Vincent paid for his supplies and left, his mind racing. The soldiers were actively searching, offering money for information. It was only a matter of time before they came to his ranch. He was far enough from town that he was not on the main roads, but systematic searches would eventually reach him. He drove his wagon home faster than usual, urgency pushing him. When he arrived, he found Paloma in the cabin, darning one of his shirts. She looked up as he entered, and immediately her face changed. "What happened?" "Soldiers are looking for you. They've been through Pueblo twice. They're offering a reward." He set down the supplies. "The man you fought, he's badly hurt, might die." Paloma set down the shirt, her hands steady despite the news. "Then I must leave. Tonight I have put you at risk long enough." "Where will you go?" "I will try to find my brother. He moves with a small group in the mountains to the west. If I can reach them, I will be safe. That's days of travel through country full of soldiers, Vincent protested. You'll never make it alone. Then I will die trying, but I will not bring soldiers down on you. You have been kind to me, Vincent Nash. I will not repay that kindness by getting you killed. They stood facing each other in the small cabin, and Vincent realized with sudden clarity that the thought of her leaving, of never seeing her again, was unbearable. In just 10 days, she had become essential to him in ways he did not fully understand yet. The cabin felt less empty when she was in it. The work felt less burdensome when they did it together. The evenings felt less lonely when they talked on the porch. "I'll come with you," he heard himself say. Paloma shook her head immediately. "No, this is your home, your land. You cannot abandon it for me. What good is land if I'm living on it alone, wondering if you made it to safety or died in some canyon somewhere?" Vincent stepped closer. "Paloma, I know this doesn't make sense. I know we've only known each other a short while, but I meant what I said before. You needed help, and I'm not the kind of man who turns away from that. This is not about help anymore," she said quietly. "This is about something else." "Yes," he agreed, "it is." The admission hung between them, heavy with implication. They had been dancing around it for days, this growing attraction, this connection that defied the circumstances that had brought them together. "I have nothing to offer you," Paloma said, and for the first time since he met her, she looked vulnerable in a way that had nothing to do with fear. "I am a fugitive. My people are scattered and broken. You have a home, a future. I would only bring you trouble." "You've already brought me something better than a trouble-free life," Vincent said. "You've brought me a reason to care about something other than just surviving another season." Before either could say more, a sound from outside froze them both. Horses. Multiple horses. Vincent moved quickly to the window, peering out carefully. His stomach dropped. 6 soldiers, led by a sergeant, were approaching the cabin. They must have been doing a sweep of the outlying ranches, and now they were here. "The barn," Vincent whispered urgently. "Hide in the loft behind the hay. Don't make a sound no matter what you hear." Paloma did not waste time arguing. She slipped out the back door and ran for the barn while Vincent took a breath, composed himself, and stepped out onto the porch just as the soldiers reached his property. The sergeant was a hard-looking man in his 40s, with graying hair and cold eyes. "Afternoon. This your ranch?" "It is." "Vincent Nash, what can I do for you?" "We're looking for a fugitive. Native girl, early 20s. Attacked an officer at Fort Garland. You seen anyone like that around here?" Vincent shook his head, forcing himself to look merely curious rather than nervous. "No, sir. I keep to myself mostly." "Don't see many people out here." The sergeant studied him for a long moment. "You mind if we look around? Check your barn." Every instinct screamed at Vincent to refuse, but he knew that would only make them suspicious. "Go ahead. Nothing to hide." He led them to the barn, his heart pounding so hard he was sure they could hear it. The soldiers spread out, searching through the stalls, looking in the tack room. One started to climb toward the loft. "Careful up there," Vincent called out, trying to sound casual. "Some of the boards are weak. Been meaning to fix them." The soldier paused, tested a board with his weight, and it creaked ominously. He decided not to risk it and climbed back down. Vincent breathed a silent prayer of thanks. The sergeant walked around the property, checking the cabin, the small storage shed, even looking in the back of Vincent's wagon. Finally, seeming satisfied, he turned back to Vincent. "You're pretty isolated out here. You sure you haven't seen anything unusual? Any tracks, signs of someone passing through?" "Nothing, Sergeant. Like I said, it's quiet out here. That's how I like it." The sergeant nodded slowly. "We're checking all the ranches in the area. If you do see anything, there's a $50 reward for information leading to her capture." "That's good money." "I'll keep that in mind," Vincent said. The soldiers mounted up and rode off, heading toward the next ranch to the south. Vincent waited until they were completely out of sight before returning to the barn. "Paloma," he called softly. "They're gone." She emerged from behind the hay in the loft, her face pale. "That was too close." "Too close," he agreed. "They'll be back, though. Once they've checked everyone once, they'll do another sweep. We don't have much time." They returned to the cabin and spent the evening planning. It was clear now that Paloma could not stay, and Vincent had meant what he said about going with her. They would need supplies for a journey of at least a week through rough terrain. They would need to move at night when possible, stay off main trails, and avoid any settlements. "If we are caught together, they will hang you," Paloma said as they packed. "You understand that? A white man helping a fugitive Indian. They will say you are a traitor." "I understand." "Then you are either very brave or very foolish." Vincent looked at her, at the way the lamplight caught in her dark hair, at the strength in her features, at the worry in her eyes that was for him rather than herself. "Maybe both," he said. They spent that night preparing, and in the quiet moments between tasks they talked. Really talked, in the way people do when they think they might not have many chances left. Paloma told him about growing up in the mountains, about learning to track deer with her brother, about the songs her mother used to sing. Vincent told her about his dreams for the ranch, about the loneliness of the past 3 years, about how he had sometimes wondered if this was all his life would ever be. "You regret it?" she asked as they sat together in the cabin, the packing finished, waiting for the right time to leave. "Do you regret letting me stay?" "Not for a second," Vincent said. "Do you regret staying?" She smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. "No. Even though it is dangerous, even though it has complicated everything, no. You showed me that not all white men are like those soldiers. You showed me that there are still good people in this world." "You showed me something too," Vincent said. "You showed me what I'd been missing living out here alone. I thought I was content, but I was just going through motions. You made me feel alive again." The confession was more than either had dared voice before, and it shifted something between them. Paloma reached out and took his hand, the first time they had really touched beyond accidental brushes while working. "Whatever happens," she said, "I am grateful I found your barn that night." "So am I," Vincent replied, squeezing her hand gently. They left 2 hours before dawn, when the world was still dark and quiet. Vincent had saddled his horse and his father's old mare, both packed with supplies. They would ride west into the mountains, aiming for the high country where Paloma believed her brother might be. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only plan they had. The first 2 days of travel were tense but uneventful. They moved carefully, avoiding open ground, staying in the cover of trees when possible. Vincent's knowledge of the land helped, but it was Paloma who proved invaluable once they reached the mountains. She could read signs he missed, could find water sources and safe paths that he would have overlooked. On the 3rd night, camped in a small cave that sheltered them from a cold rain, they sat close to their small fire, sharing a meal of beans and hardtack. "Tell me about your brother," Vincent said. "What's he like?" Paloma's expression became complicated. "Takota is strong, brave. He has always protected me, even when we were children. But he is also angry. The soldiers killed his wife 2 years ago during a raid on our village. Since then, he has only wanted revenge. He fights because he does not know what else to do with his pain." "Will he accept me?" Vincent asked. "A white man traveling with his sister." "I do not know," Paloma admitted. "He will be grateful I am alive and free. But whether he will trust you, whether he will see you as I do, I cannot say. Takota has reasons to hate your people." "They're not my people," Vincent said. "Those soldiers, the men who hurt your family, they're not mine. I don't claim them." "You do not have to claim them for him to see you as one of them," Paloma said gently. "The color of your skin makes you the enemy in his eyes, whether you wish it or not." It was a sobering thought, but Vincent understood the truth in it. He had benefited from being white in ways he had never fully considered before meeting Paloma. He could own land, could walk into town without fear, could live his life without soldiers hunting him. She had none of those privileges, through no fault of her own. "Then I'll have to prove myself to him," Vincent said. "Show him I'm different. That may not be enough. It'll have to be." On the 5th day, as they followed a narrow trail along a ridge, Paloma suddenly held up her hand, signaling Vincent to stop. She dismounted and examined the ground carefully, then looked around at the surrounding trees. "What is it?" Vincent asked quietly. "We are being watched," she said. "For the last mile, maybe more, there." She pointed to a rock formation above them. "And there." Another point to a dense cluster of trees. Vincent saw nothing, but he trusted her instincts. "Your brother's people." "I hope so. If not, we are in trouble." She called out in Ute, words Vincent did not understand but which carried clearly in the mountain air. She identified herself, gave her family name, called for her brother. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then figures began to emerge from concealment. 5 warriors, armed with rifles and bows, surrounding them. They looked hard and weathered, dressed in a mixture of traditional clothing and items taken from whites. Their faces were impassive as they assessed Vincent and Paloma. One of them, taller than the others with a jagged scar across his left cheek, stepped forward. His eyes locked on Paloma and his stoic expression cracked. "Paloma," he said, and the relief in his voice was unmistakable. "Takoda," she breathed, and suddenly she was off her horse and running to him. The reunion was emotional, the siblings embracing fiercely, speaking rapidly in Ute. Vincent stayed on his horse, very aware that the other 4 warriors had their weapons trained on him. He kept his hands visible and tried to look as non-threatening as possible. After a long moment, Takoda released his sister and turned his attention to Vincent. His expression hardened immediately. "Who is this?" he asked in English. "This is Vincent Nash," Paloma said, also in English, moving to stand between them. "He saved my life. He hid me from soldiers and helped me escape. He is a good man, Takoda." "A good white man." Takoda's voice dripped with sarcasm. "There is no such thing." "There is, and he is one," Paloma insisted. "He risked everything to help me. The soldiers were hunting me. He could have turned me in for the reward, but he did not. He abandoned his home to bring me here to find you." Takoda studied Vincent with eyes that held years of pain and anger. "Why?" he asked directly. "Why would you do this for my sister? What do you want from her?" Vincent met his gaze steadily. "I helped her because she needed help. I continued to help her because she deserved it, and I came with her because I could not stand the thought of her making this journey alone." "That is not an answer." "Then here is your answer," Vincent said. "I care about her. In the time she was at my ranch, I came to care about her more than I have cared about anyone in a long time. I know you have every reason not to trust me. I know my people have given you nothing but pain. But I am not asking you to trust all white men. I am only asking you to trust that I would never hurt your sister." The other warriors muttered among themselves in Ute, and Vincent caught enough to know they were not pleased. One of them said something sharp to Takoda, who responded equally sharply. An argument seemed to be developing. Paloma spoke up, her voice cutting through the tension. She spoke in Ute, but Vincent could tell from her tone and her gestures that she was defending him, explaining what had happened. She pointed to herself, to Vincent, spoke passionately. Finally, Takoda held up a hand, silencing everyone. He looked between his sister and Vincent for a long moment, then said something in Ute that made the other warriors lower their weapons, though their expressions remained suspicious. "You can come to our camp," Takoda said to Vincent. "But you will be watched. If you make one wrong move, if you show any sign of betrayal, you will die. My sister's word saves your life today. Do not make me regret honoring it." "Understood," Vincent said. The camp was another hour's travel deeper into the mountains, hidden in a box canyon that was easily defensible and invisible from below. There were perhaps 20 people there, a mix of warriors and families, living in hide shelters and tents. Children stopped playing to stare as they arrived, and women paused in their work to watch the white man being brought into their midst. Vincent was acutely aware that he was completely at their mercy here. If they decided to kill him, no one would ever know. His ranch would simply sit empty, and eventually someone would claim it as abandoned property. But he had made his choice, and he would stand by it. They gave him a space at the edge of the camp, not quite part of it but not entirely excluded. Paloma stayed with him, which seemed to irritate some of the warriors but which Takoda allowed. As night fell and fires were lit, people gathered to eat and talk, and Vincent found himself the subject of many curious and hostile stares. "This is harder than I thought it would be," he admitted to Paloma as they sat by their own small fire, "being here, being the enemy." "You are not the enemy," she said, "but you represent the enemy. It will take time." "Do we have time?" "I do not know. Takoda is planning to move the camp soon." The soldiers are getting bolder, searching further into the mountains. Staying in one place too long is dangerous. Over the next several days, Vincent tried to make himself useful. He helped with camp chores, hauled water, gathered firewood. Most people ignored him, but a few spoke to him, testing him. An older woman who spoke some English asked him questions about where he came from, what his intentions were. He answered as honestly as he could. Takoda remained coldly distant. He watched Vincent constantly, and whenever Vincent was near Paloma, Takoda's expression darkened. It was clear he did not approve of whatever was developing between his sister and the white stranger. On the 6th day in camp, Takoda finally approached Vincent directly. "Walk with me," he said, and it was not a request. They walked away from the camp into the trees. Vincent wondered if this was where he would die, taken out of sight and killed, but Paloma had seen them leave and surely would have said something if that was the plan. When they were alone, Takoda stopped and turned to face him. "My sister has feelings for you," he said bluntly. "I see it in the way she looks at you, the way she defends you. I do not like it." "I have feelings for her too," Vincent said, seeing no point in lying. "Your feelings will destroy her," Takoda said. "You come from different worlds. There is no place for a white man and a Ute woman to be together. The whites will hate her for being with you, and my people will hate her for choosing you. You will make her an outcast in both worlds." "I know it won't be easy," Vincent acknowledged, "but I also know that what we have is rare. You can't find that kind of connection often in life. When you do, you don't let it go just because it's difficult." "You speak of love like it is worth dying for," Takoda said bitterly. "I loved my wife. I loved her more than my own life. And when the soldiers killed her, that love became a wound that will never heal. If you love my sister, you will leave her. You will go back to your ranch and your white world, and you will let her stay here where she belongs." "Does she belong here?" Vincent challenged. "Living in hiding, always running, never safe. Is that the life you want for her?" Takoda's expression turned dangerous. "It is the only life the whites have left us. We did not choose this. This was done to us. I know, and it's wrong. All of it is wrong. But me leaving won't change that. It won't make Paloma safer. It will just make her unhappy." They stood there in the forest, two men from different worlds, both wanting what was best for the woman they both loved, though in different ways. "If you hurt her," Takoda said quietly. "If you betray her, I will kill you. I will hunt you to the ends of the earth, and I will make you suffer before you die. Do you understand me?" "Yes," Vincent said. "And if I ever do hurt her, I will deserve whatever you do to me. But I am not going to hurt her. I would rather die than cause her pain." Something in Vincent's voice must have convinced Takoda of his sincerity, because the warrior's expression softened slightly. "My sister is strong, but she has suffered much. She deserves happiness." "She does." "Can you give her that? Happiness?" "I can try," Vincent said. "That's all I can promise. I can try." Takoda was silent for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "That will have to be enough." He turned to head back to camp, then paused. "Vincent Nash, you are not what I expected when I heard a white man had brought my sister to me. Perhaps there is more to you than your skin. Time will tell." It was not quite acceptance, but it was a beginning. That night, after the camp had settled down, Vincent found Paloma sitting alone near the edge of the canyon, looking out at the stars. He sat down beside her, and she leaned against him, a simple gesture that felt monumental. "Takoda talked to you," she said. It was not a question. He did. "He told me I should leave you, go back to my ranch." She tensed. "What did you say?" "I told him no. I told him I care about you too much to walk away." She relaxed again, and he felt her hand find his. "I spoke to him too. I told him that I love you." Vincent's heart stuttered. They had danced around the word, implied it, suggested it, but neither had said it directly until now. "I love you too," he said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. "I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but it's true. My people believe that sometimes souls recognize each other," Paloma said softly. "That in all the world, certain people are meant to find each other. When I was in your barn that first night, terrified and alone, and you showed me kindness instead of cruelty, I think my soul recognized yours." Vincent turned to look at her, and in the starlight, she was beautiful and brave and everything he had not known he was looking for. He cupped her face gently in his hands and kissed her, soft and careful, asking a question. She answered by kissing him back, deeper, more certain. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "What do we do now?" Vincent asked. "How do we make this work?" "I do not know," Paloma admitted, "but we will find a way, together." They sat together under the stars, holding each other, and for the first time in weeks, Vincent felt something like peace. The peace did not last long. 2 days later, one of the warriors who had been scouting returned with alarming news. Soldiers were coming, a large patrol, moving systematically through the mountains. They were burning camps they found, capturing or killing anyone who resisted. They were still 2 days away, but they were coming directly toward this canyon. The camp erupted in controlled chaos as people prepared to move. Takoda organized his warriors, directed families to pack only what they could carry. This was clearly a routine they had practiced before. Vincent helped where he could, but mostly tried to stay out of the way. As the sun set on what would be their last night in this place, Takoda called a council of his warriors. To Vincent's surprise, Paloma gestured for him to join. The men sat in a circle around a fire, and Takoda spoke in Ute, explaining the situation. Vincent could not follow all of it, but he caught enough to understand they were discussing routes, plans for evacuation, how to protect the women and children. One of the warriors, a young man named Masca who had been particularly hostile to Vincent, spoke up and pointed at him, his tone angry. Paloma translated in a whisper. "He says we should kill you now before we leave, that you will betray us to the soldiers, tell them where we are going." Vincent kept his expression calm, though his heart raced. This was the moment, he realized, where everything would be decided. If Takoda agreed with Masca, Vincent would die here tonight. Takoda responded, his voice firm but not angry. Paloma translated. He says that I trust you and he trusts my judgment, that if you wanted to betray us, you would have done so already. That you have worked beside us, shared our food, and shown no sign of treachery. Maska argued back, but another warrior, an older man named Chaitin, cut him off and spoke at length. He is saying, Paloma whispered, that the whites are our enemy because they have proven themselves to be so with actions. If we judge this man guilty without him doing anything wrong, we become no better than those who judge us by our skin alone. He says you should be allowed to prove yourself. The debate continued, but slowly the tide seemed to turn in Vincent's favor. Finally, Takoda spoke again, and his tone made clear the discussion was over. He looked at Vincent directly and switched to English. You will come with us when we move. You will help protect the women and children. If soldiers find us, you will fight beside us or you will die with us. You will not be given a chance to surrender to claim you were a captive. If you are with us, you are one of us. Do you accept this? It was a test, Vincent understood. An offer of true acceptance, but one that came with absolute commitment. If he agreed and soldiers caught them, he would be treated as a hostile. He would hang if captured. His old life would be completely forfeit. He looked at Paloma, who was watching him with barely concealed anxiety. He thought of his ranch, sitting empty now. He thought of the life he had built there, the safety and simplicity of it. Then he thought of what the last weeks with Paloma had been like, how alive he had felt, how much purpose he had found in standing beside her. I accept, he said. Takoda nodded. Then you are under my protection as much as any warrior here. Maska, do you accept my decision? The young warrior looked unhappy but nodded grudgingly. Good. We leave at first light. Everyone prepare. The council broke up, and as Vincent stood, Chaitin approached him. The older warrior studied him for a moment, then spoke in slow, careful English. You chose the harder path. That shows character. Perhaps you will survive. Perhaps not, but you will die honorably if it comes to that. Thank you, Vincent said, not sure what else to say to such a statement. That night, lying beside Paloma in their shelter, Vincent felt the weight of what he had agreed to. I might have just chosen death, he said quietly. You chose love, Paloma corrected. And you chose to stand for what is right. That is never the wrong choice, even if it leads to danger. I'm afraid, he admitted. Not of dying, but of failing you, of not being strong enough or brave enough. You are already strong enough, she said, touching his face. You proved that by coming this far. Whatever happens tomorrow or the next day, we face it together. They left the canyon at dawn, a long line of people moving through the mountain passes, traveling north toward rougher country. Vincent rode beside Paloma, and Takoda positioned them in the middle of the group, protected by warriors front and back. The travel was hard, pushing through difficult terrain, trying to move quickly while keeping the children and elderly safe. Vincent found himself helping an older woman whose horse had gone lame, walking alongside her and carrying her supplies. She did not speak English, but she smiled at him gratefully, and he felt something warm in his chest. These were good people, he realized, just trying to survive. On the second day of travel, the scouts spotted the soldiers, closer than expected. They were perhaps half a day behind, moving faster than anticipated. Takoda made the decision to split the group. The warriors would stay behind to delay the soldiers, giving the families time to reach a safer location further north where they could hide. No, Paloma said immediately when she understood the plan. I am not leaving you to fight alone. You must, Takoda said firmly. The families need someone to guide them, someone who knows the land. You are the best tracker after me. You have to lead them to safety. Vincent can do it. I will stay and fight. Vincent is needed to protect them if soldiers find them anyway, Takoda argued. Paloma, please. I need to know you are safe. I cannot fight if I am worrying about you." It was a role reversal from the beginning of their journey, and Paloma looked torn. Vincent understood, though. She wanted to stay to fight beside her brother, but she also knew he was right. "I will keep them safe," Vincent promised Takoda. "All of them, I swear it." Takoda clasped Vincent's arm, a warrior's gesture of respect. "I believe you. Take care of her. If I do not return, she will need someone." "You will return," Vincent said firmly. "You are too stubborn to die." Takoda almost smiled. "Perhaps go now. There is no more time." The farewell between Paloma and her brother was painful to witness. They embraced tightly, and Paloma spoke rapidly in Ute, words that Vincent suspected were prayers or blessings. Takoda responded in kind, then gently pushed her toward her horse. "Go," he said. Vincent led the families north, pushing as fast as they safely could. Behind them, as the sun began to set, they heard the distant sound of gunfire. Paloma flinched at every shot, her face pale but determined. They kept moving through the night, using moonlight to guide them. By dawn, they reached a hidden valley that Paloma said would be safe, at least for a while. The families made camp, exhausted and frightened. Vincent helped where he could, but his mind was on the warriors they had left behind, on Takoda facing soldiers. 3 days passed with no word. Vincent tried to keep spirits up, helped hunt for food, organized watches in case soldiers found them. But the tension was unbearable. On the 4th day, as the sun was setting, riders approached. Vincent grabbed his rifle, ready to fight or die protecting these people as he had promised. But then Paloma cried out in relief. It was Takoda and 4 of the warriors, riding hard, wounded but alive. They had held off the soldiers long enough for the trail to go cold. Takoda explained as the camp gathered around. They had led the patrol in the wrong direction, then doubled back. There had been fighting and 1 warrior had been killed, but the rest had escaped. "You are alive," Paloma said, hugging her brother fiercely. "Thanks to you and Vincent leading them away," Takoda replied. "The families are safe, all safe." Vincent kept his promise. Takoda looked at Vincent, and something had changed in his eyes. The suspicion was gone, replaced by something that might have been respect. "You did well. Chayton told me you carried old Nara for the last 5 miles when she could not walk anymore, that you made sure everyone ate before you ate, that you stood watch 3 nights in a row to let others rest." Vincent shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. It was what needed to be done. "Not every man does what needs to be done," Takoda said. "You have proven yourself, Vincent Nash. You are no longer a guest in our camp. You are one of us." It was as close to full acceptance as Vincent was likely to get, and it meant everything. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm. The group moved regularly, staying ahead of patrols, surviving in the high country. Vincent learned more Ute, became better at the skills needed for this nomadic life. He and Paloma grew even closer, their bond deepening with each shared hardship and small joy. But as autumn approached, reality began to press in. The nights were getting colder, and winter in the high mountains would be brutal. The group did not have adequate supplies to last, and game was becoming scarce as too many hunters were working the same territory. "We cannot survive the winter up here," Takoda admitted in council one night. "We need to find a better location, or we need to surrender to the reservation." The word surrender hung heavy. Everyone knew what reservations meant, the slow death of culture and freedom, living on the charity and whim of the Indian agents. "There might be another option," Vincent said hesitantly. Everyone turned to look at him. "My ranch. It is remote, far from town. There is good water, some game. It is not enough for everyone, but maybe for some. Maybe the ones who need shelter most." "You would do this?" Takoda asked. Risk everything by bringing my people onto your land. It is already forfeit, Vincent said. I have been gone for months. If I go back, it will be to find squatters or the land claimed for taxes. But if we go back together, if we take it back, maybe we can use it, at least for the winter. It was a dangerous plan. They would be closer to settlements, to soldiers, but the alternative was freezing or starving in the mountains. After much discussion, a decision was made. A small group would return with Vincent to claim his ranch. If it worked, if they could establish a safe place there, others might follow. If it did not work, at least they tried something other than slow death. The group that rode back toward Vincent's ranch 2 weeks later consisted of Vincent, Paloma, Takoda, and 5 others, including Chayton and Masca. They traveled cautiously, moving mostly at night, avoiding all contact with settlers. When they finally reached Vincent's property on a cold October evening, he was relieved to find the cabin and barn still standing, though the place had clearly been abandoned for months. Some of his cattle were gone, probably stolen or strayed, but a few remained. The land itself was untouched. Home, Vincent said quietly, looking at the cabin. It seemed smaller than he remembered, less important. But it was still his, and now he was offering to share it. They spent the first days making repairs, weatherproofing the structures, preparing for winter. Takoda and the warriors were skilled builders, and together they constructed additional shelters from local materials. It was hard work, but it was good work, purposeful. The question of how they would explain the presence of natives on the land, if anyone came around, was solved by Vincent and Paloma. They would say she was his wife, that the others were her family who had come to stay. It was a thin fiction, but it might hold if they were careful. And so, late one evening in early November, with the first snow beginning to fall, Vincent and Paloma stood before Takoda and Chayton and the others, and they spoke vows. They were not legal vows, not recognized by any church or government, but they were real vows, promises made heart to heart. I promise to stand beside you, Vincent said, holding Paloma's hands. In danger and in peace, in plenty and in want. I promise to honor your people, to protect your family as my own. I promise to love you until my last breath. I promise to stand beside you, Paloma replied, her voice strong. To share your burdens, to be your partner in all things. I promise to bring you joy and to weather sorrow with you. I promise to love you until the stars go dark. Takoda blessed them in Ute, speaking words that had been used for generations of his people. Then in English he added, You are married in the eyes of the people, in the eyes of the spirits. May your path together be long and filled with children. They kissed, and the small group cheered, and for one night the troubles of the world seemed far away. Winter came hard and cold. The small community on Vincent's ranch hunkered down, rationing supplies, hunting when possible. It was not easy, but they survived. No soldiers came. The isolation that had once made Vincent lonely now proved to be their greatest protection. On a frozen February night, Paloma woke Vincent with urgent hands. The baby, she said. It is coming. Vincent had known she was pregnant, though they had not spoken much about it, as if talking about the future might jinx it. Now the future was arriving, ready or not. The women of the group took over, sending Vincent outside to pace and worry in the traditional manner of expectant fathers. Takoda sat with him by a fire, passing a flask back and forth. I am going to be an uncle, Takoda said, and there was wonder in his voice. After everything, after all the death, new life. Are you happy about it? Vincent asked. Truly, I am, Takoda said. When you first came to us, I thought you would ruin my sister's life. I thought you were another white man taking what was not his, but you proved me wrong. You have given her a home, safety, love. You have given our people sanctuary. You are a good man, Vincent Nash, whatever color your skin. That means a lot, Vincent said, genuinely moved. I know how hard it is for you to trust after everything you have lost. Trust is hard, Takoda agreed. But you have earned it. As dawn broke, painting the snowy landscape in shades of pink and gold, a baby's cry pierced the cold air. Vincent jumped up, but Chaitin's wife emerged first, smiling. You have a son, she said. Strong and healthy, your wife wants you. Vincent rushed inside to find Paloma propped up in their bed, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in soft furs. She looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. Look, she whispered. Look what we made. Vincent sat beside her and carefully took his son in his arms. The baby was tiny, perfect, with a shock of dark hair and Paloma's nose. He opened his eyes briefly, unfocused but searching, and Vincent felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. What do we name him? He asked. I thought William, Paloma said. After your father. And in Ute, Tuwa, which means earth. William Tuwa Nash, a name from both worlds for a child who belongs to both. It is perfect, Vincent said. He is perfect. The baby squirmed and made small noises, and Vincent marveled at the miracle of it. Here, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by hardship and danger, life had found a way. Hope had found a way. As winter gave way to spring, the small community on Vincent's ranch stabilized. More families came from Takoda's group, seeking refuge. Vincent's land could not support all of them, but it could support enough. They worked the land together, planted crops, raised animals. It was a fragile existence, always with the threat of discovery hanging over them, but it was existence. Vincent and Paloma's son thrived, growing strong and healthy. Takoda doted on his nephew, teaching him tracking and hunting as soon as the baby could walk. Chaitin carved toys for him. The whole community embraced the child as a symbol of hope, of a future that might be possible. On William's second birthday, as they gathered to celebrate, a rider approached the ranch. Everyone tensed, ready to defend or flee. But the rider was alone, an older man with a marshal's badge. Vincent stepped forward to meet him, Paloma at his side. "Can I help you?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The marshal dismounted slowly, looking around at the community gathered there. His eyes took in the mix of white and native faces, the shelters, the children playing. "Vincent Nash," he asked. "That is me. I am Marshal Thomas Garrett from Denver. I heard reports of this place, wanted to see it for myself." He looked at Paloma. "This is your wife?" "Yes, Paloma Nash." The marshal nodded slowly. "There are warrants out for some native fugitives. Descriptions match some of the people I see here." Vincent felt everyone behind him tense, readying for violence. He held up a hand, keeping things calm. "Marshal, these people are not causing any trouble. They are living peacefully on my land, working, raising families. We are not bothering anyone." "That may be," the marshal said. "But the law is the law. The law is unjust," Vincent said, anger rising despite his attempt to stay calm. "These people's only crime was not wanting to leave their homes. They have hurt no one. They deserve to live in peace." The marshal was quiet for a long moment, studying Vincent's face, then Paloma's, then looking past them to the community. His expression was hard to read. "Son, you know you are risking everything by harboring fugitives," he finally said. "I know, but it is the right thing to do." The marshal sighed, and suddenly he looked very tired. "I have been a lawman for 30 years. I have seen a lot of injustice done in the name of the law. I have participated in some of it, to my shame." He looked directly at Takoda, who had moved to stand beside Vincent. "You are Takoda, brother to Paloma?" "I am. You have a warrant for attacking soldiers. They want you brought in." "Then take me," Takoda said, "but leave the others alone." "I am not taking anyone," the marshal said, and everyone started. "I rode out here expecting to find a camp of hostiles, maybe a white man held captive. Instead, I find families, children, people trying to live. I find a man who married a native woman and is helping her people survive. That is not criminality. That is decency. You are not arresting us." Vincent asked, hardly daring to believe it. "I am not arresting anyone. Officially, I found nothing out here but the Nash ranch worked by Nash and his family. I see no fugitives. I see no hostiles." The marshal climbed back on his horse. "Keep your heads down. Do not make trouble. And maybe, just maybe, you all can live out your lives in peace." "Thank you," Vincent said, his voice thick with emotion. The marshal nodded. "Thank your wife. It is seeing her with that child, seeing you two together, that changed my mind. My daughter married a Mexican man last year against my wishes. I said terrible things to her, refused to attend the wedding. Broke her heart. Broke mine too, if I am honest. Seeing you two, it reminded me that love is love, and that is more important than the color of someone's skin." He tipped his hat. "Good luck to you all." He rode away, and the community stood in stunned silence. Then, slowly, people began to laugh and cry and embrace. They had been given a miracle, a chance to keep living without fear. "You think he meant it?" Paloma asked Vincent quietly. "Do you think we are truly safe?" "As safe as we can be," Vincent said. "There will always be risks. But today, right now, we are safe. That is enough." Years passed. The community grew, adding members, losing some to age or illness but gaining more through births. Vincent and Paloma had 3 more children, 2 daughters and another son. Their ranch became known in the area as a place where natives and whites lived together, a strange experiment that somehow worked. There were troubles, of course. Some neighbors objected to the presence of natives. There were confrontations, threats, even a few acts of sabotage. But Vincent and his community stood firm, and slowly, grudgingly, they earned a measure of respect. Takota eventually married a woman from another displaced band who came to the ranch seeking safety. They had children of their own, and the joy it brought him to be a father helped heal some of his old wounds. He never forgot his first wife, never stopped mourning her, but he learned to live with the grief rather than being consumed by it. On a warm evening in the summer of 1895, 17 years after Vincent first found Paloma in his barn, the family gathered for a celebration. William, now a young man of 15, had just returned from Pueblo where he had been apprenticing with a blacksmith. He was tall and strong, moving easily between the white and Ute parts of his heritage. Vincent sat on the porch of the cabin, now expanded and improved over the years, watching his family. Paloma sat beside him, her hair now streaked with gray, her face lined by years of sun and smiles. She was as beautiful to him now as she had been that first night, maybe more so. "You ever regret it?" she asked, as if reading his thoughts. "Do you ever wish you had turned me in, kept your simple life?" Vincent laughed. "Not once. Not for a single moment. You gave me everything, Paloma. A family, a purpose, a reason to be better than I was. You gave me my life," she countered. "My freedom. My children. You gave me love when I thought I would never feel safe enough to accept it." They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the sun set over the mountains. Their grandchildren played in the yard, Takota's kids mixing with their own. The community that had grown from one desperate act of kindness thrived around them. "Tell me the story again," their youngest daughter, Maria, said, climbing onto Vincent's lap even though she was getting too big for it. "Tell me about the night you met Mama." Vincent smiled and began the tale he had told 100 times, about finding a frightened girl in his barn, about the choice he made to help her, about the journey that followed. He told about falling in love against all odds, about fighting for the right to be together, about building a life from nothing. As he spoke, Paloma rested her head on his shoulder, and he felt profoundly grateful for every moment, every hardship, every joy. They had faced down soldiers, prejudice, poverty, and danger. They had lost friends and gained family. They had built something that mattered. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. In the distance, a coyote called and another answered. The children laughed, playing some game of their invention. Takoda called out a joke in Ute and everyone laughed. "This," Paloma said softly, "this is what I dreamed of when I was hiding in your barn that night. Not the specific details, but this feeling, safety, love, home." "It is home," Vincent agreed, "for all of us, and it always will be." As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, the family moved inside for dinner, talking and laughing, secure in the knowledge that they belonged together, that they had created something beautiful and lasting in a world that had tried to keep them apart. Vincent Nash had started as a lonely rancher with nothing but land and solitude. He had become a husband, a father, a grandfather, a leader of a community, and every bit of it traced back to that moment when he chose compassion over fear, love over convenience, hope over despair. It was a choice he would make again, every single day for the rest of his life. And lying in bed that night, Paloma sleeping peacefully beside him, their family safe under his roof, Vincent closed his eyes knowing that he was the richest man alive, not in gold or land, but in the things that truly mattered. The stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had shone on them that first night 17 years ago. The world had changed and would continue changing. But here, on this ranch in Colorado, love had won, and that was enough. That was everything.